Good evening. Here we are again to debate the fifth round of the National Championship of Debate. We have two teams, one from Sicily and the other one from Liguria. I am the senior judge, Laura Galli. The judges, can you please introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Anna Maria Rossi, Liceo Scientifico Marinelli, Udine.
I'm the other judge, Franco Marini from Cagliari.
Okay. The topic that the teams will be debating tonight is the following. This house believes that literature should be judged solely on its aesthetic merit, regardless of the political or moral views of the author. So, teams, please introduce yourselves.
I'm Ravini Tati, and I'm the first speaker of the proposition.
My name is Arianna Accetta, and I'm the second speaker of the proposition, and I will also be in charge of the reply speech.
My name is Anita Rufino, and I'm the third speaker.
Okay, now to the opposition team.
Good afternoon, my name is Sofia Becca, and I'm the speaker for one of the opposition team.
My name is Sophie Bisso, and I will be the second speaker, and I will also do the reply speech.
And my name is Sara Gorrino, and I'm third speaker for the opposition.
Okay, so if the teams are ready, we can now start the debate. Ravini, when you're ready.
I'm starting in 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ravini Tati, and I'm proudly standing as the first speaker of the proposition. Throughout my speech, I'll give the definitions, the framing, our criteria, our team's line, and then I'll present the first argument. So allow me to define these terms. Literature is art of writing poetry, prose, novels, ballads, and different types of art. Aesthetic merit is the artistic quality that is objective, independent of external factors like politics and morality and everything. It's composed by metrics, rhetoric figures, rhythm, and musicality. These things are those that make a simple group of words, of thoughts, into a piece of art, a real masterpiece. So let's give the context of what we are talking about. Literature is written by an author that studies years to give the best metrics and rhetoric to the composition. The author is a person that dedicates his or her time to make a perfect masterpiece. So why would their work should be threatened by what they think? They are people who have the right to believe in what they want or what they think and everything, what they see about the world. But no piece of art should be damaged by that. So what makes some words a piece of art is the aesthetic part and not the morality. And it's also real that it's a human right to have a belief. Everyone has this right, and also an author. So the author doesn't have to change its perspective just to be right for something. So in this debate, we characterize literature as a form of independent art. So the meaning comes from the interpretation of the reader and not from the biography of the author. So literature has to be universal and stable. Moral view depends from the period, from everything, and it mutates from time to time. So the aesthetic part is stable, the metric and everything remains the same. So we, as the proposition, want stability over continuous mutation. So we have three criteria: objectivity, freedom of author and the reader that can interpret what they are reading as they want, and the development of culture. So our themes line is simple and direct. This house believes that literature must be evaluated independently from personal belief or actions of the author, because aesthetic values belong to the text itself and not from the author's thinking. So I'm presenting our arguments. The first argument will be presented by me, Ravinita, the first speaker of the proposition, that is, literature is an autonomous art. The second argument is intellectual freedom and readers' engagement, that will be presented by the second speaker of the proposition. And the third one is development of culture. So I present our first argument. So literature is an autonomous art. So judging literature only by its aesthetic merit, it becomes independent from external factors. So every type of literature comes from a rigorous study of the style, metrics, rhetoric, and everything. These things make a difference between every author that we read. If we read, for example, Dante Alighieri and then Petrarca, we see the difference. We don't need to see their morality, their political view to make a difference between them. Also, the way of, also the rhythm of their compositions can make a difference. So these things make a piece an original one. So they give originality to a piece of art. So literature becomes independent because no morality has the right to influence. Morality and belief change by the time, and it's such an unstable thing to consider it as the basis of critique. So many authors in the past couldn't defend their masterpieces, and they submitted to the Inquisition. Today, we would have had such more original pieces than what we have, but the authors, afraid of being censored or also killed because of their way of thinking, they changed the art. For example, we don't have the original Decameron of Boccaccio because it was censored. So we don't know if we are reading what the author really thought at that time. Or, for example, Cartesio in a letter said that he is afraid of being killed, so he had to compromise his art, his thinking, only to be right for the critics. So judging literature also by morality leads to compromise, loss of authenticity, and it causes also death in the past, we can say. So, in other words, the best thing to do is to make literature autonomous by judging it by the aesthetic merit, because it also gives originality. We don't have to see. So the process idea is that literature is made literature. So the word literature is made that by the aesthetic part, and considering it as the basis is important because it makes literature independent, and we also have to learn from the past. So we have to learn from the past, and this is our idea. So with this, I finished my speech.
Okay, 7 minutes, 24 seconds. When the other judges are ready, okay? Franco, Anna, are you ready? Okay, so please, Sophie Varga, right? You can start your speech whenever you want.
Maybe I'll use my notes.
Sophie, we always have this problem with your voice. There is a echo, there is a problem with your microphone. I don't know what it is, but we don't hear you very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me try to fix it. I'm not sure if I can improve it.
Okay, now it's better. Now it's better.
Okay, it's better. It's better. Okay.
Do you have your timer?
Yes. Let me
Okay,
just
so I close my microphone to improve the audio for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Please, Sarah, keep your web. Okay, you had disappeared. Okay, whenever you want, Sophia.
Okay. Just a second. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. My name is Varga Sofia, and today I'm here to talk about literature. So, first of all, we do not agree, my opposition team does not agree with the definitions of the criteria that the other team has proposed. Or we think that literature is not solely an aesthetic merit, as it is not only just a form of art solely based on rhetorical devices and aestheticism, but is directly influenced by external factors. Many authors during the years, during history, during the entire history of humanity have been influenced by external factors, wrote about these external factors and how it affected them. They wrote about how politics had affected their lifestyle, the lifestyle of others, and art cannot be inherently just rhetorical devices and aestheticism. It is also a way of expression of one's own identity. However, that identity shouldn't be separated from the art. And I will also talk about this in my argument. The other position of the terms that the other team has proposed is that the definition of authors. Authors can be anyone. They do not have to study for years. While many authors perfect their craft over the span of numerous years, they do not necessarily study for it. Anyone can do art. Art is accessible to everyone. Anyone can do art without having to learn for it. Now, our team line, we are strictly against the motion that art shouldn't be separated from the artist. We believe, my team, the opposition team believes that literature and art are inherently affected by the author and that we shouldn't separate the author from their art. Now, our team line is based on the promotion of harmful ideologies, with me presenting the first argument, which is rewarding harmful voices in our society. The second argument presented by Sophie Bisso will be no separation from meaning, and the third argument presented by Sara Gorrino will be the responsibilities of audiences. Now with that, I will begin my first argument, but before I begin, I would like to refute some of the things that the speaker one has said before. Now, let me rearrange my notes. Okay. So, the interpretation of a reader, while it can happen, but authors indirectly influence their audiences, because it is not just up to the interpretation of the reader, but also what the author is trying to convey. Authors clearly convey something in their message that is based on their political ideologies, the way their life has been affected, and they effectively convey their feelings to the reader. And they can even promote propaganda, they can promote their ideologies to art. And it's not solely just an aesthetic merit. So it's not just rhetorical devices. These rhetorical devices refer to real life events, refer to real life problems that are present in our societies. Now, hence, literature is not a form of independent, not just a form of independent art, but it is influenced by everything, by the author, and it is determined by the author and who the author is specifically. Now, the speaker one has also said that culture is very important in this aspect, and that throughout history, numerous times, we have seen changes in our moral views. But just because something was considered normal before in history doesn't mean that it's right now. It doesn't mean that racism can be justified solely because the artist conveyed it in a beautiful rhetorical way. It doesn't justify the fact that privilege was promoted by art. Now, I would like to pass on to my first argument, which is ignoring the author's views rewards awful voices. Yes?
Aren't you aware that we can appreciate texts without approving the morality of the creators?
Well, doing that, I will present you my first argument on why that can be harmful. Because even though we can appreciate someone's writing style and we do not appreciate their moral views, but that doesn't mean that we can justify the fact that their art is beautiful. We can justify their views by the fact that their art is beautiful. It's not a justification. Now, with that, I would like to continue my first argument as ignoring the author's views rewards harmful voices. Poetry, novels, short stories, all types of literature draw from real life, and they can be exposed to a worldwide audience for people of all ages. That means children from schools, adolescents, and people of all ages. Now, this type of literature can spread propaganda and ideologies and force them on other people. And with the fact that education, for example, in schools promotes these by basically separating the author from the artist. They do so by basically teaching kids that we only care about rhetorical devices and we only care about the art and not teaching about who the person actually was. It plants a seed in children's mind, in their subconscious, that it's completely normal to be a bad person, but still, because of their talent, they have privilege and they can still receive tons of merit just because they write something beautifully. And that idea of privilege gets conveyed throughout centuries and gets further amplified. Now, also, literature can be a way of spreading harmful ideology and propaganda, as I said before, by basically not just this means, but also promoting a certain beauty standard or a certain ideology. But how does this relate to the author, you may ask? Well, it relates to the author in other ways as well. For example, let's take the author Roald Dahl. He has been reportedly abusing his wife, and he also promoted racism in his very, very famous play, The Chocolate Factory, where basically in the original version, African people were used as slaves, as guinea pigs in the factory. And this was promoted in a children's book. It was normalized and children read it. So they basically thought that it was a normal thing to do. And this seed was planted in the minds of millions and millions of people, which is not okay. Now, historically, aesthetic merit has been used to justify a canon dominated by privileged groups. If institutions like schools, publishers, and critics judge only aesthetics, they end up elevating voices that damage real communities. Well, that is my speech. Thank you very much for listening.
Molto bene, very well. I see 7 minutes and 33. I don't know if my okay. So thank you, Sophie. If my colleagues are ready, I would introduce Arianna, who's the second speaker of the proposition team, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, Arianna, wherever you want, whenever you're ready.
Okay, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. So this debate has now revealed the key clashes of this round, and as the second speaker of the proposition, I will now address the opposition's arguments, and then I will deepen and reinforce our arguments. So the opposition's claim of bad influence is based on a simplistic and outdated view of how communication works. So if something is dangerous, what should be done and changed is regulating the distribution, but that still doesn't change the artistic value of the work. So we need to deal with it through education, context, and public discussion, not by redefining the artistic evaluation. So the fact that morality shapes meaning is false. Meaning can be informed by context, but the aesthetic value is something that is intrinsic and universal. So even if, for example, we study the author's lives and history in school, this is for a very different purpose. This is to provide a cultural and historical baggage, and this is not what this debate is about. Here we are discussing how we evaluate the literary work itself. So the authors often reflect their experience, politics, and identity in literature. And this enriches the text, but it is not determinant for the artistic quality. So, for example, a novel's beauty does not depend on whether the author's personal politics are admirable. The aesthetic criteria must remain separate to protect the artistic freedom. So what the authors write is often influenced by their experience, and this is already into the text. So the burden of the readers is to read the text and take from it what they can take based on their personal experience. So this is already included in the text, and it should not be important out of it. So moving on to our second argument, that is intellectual freedom and the reader's engagement. We believe that the moral evaluation of the author restricts the reader intellectual freedom and interpretative agency. So what we mean is that our burden is to prove that artistic merit is autonomous. So even if the author is socially condemned or morally problematic, their work can and must be appreciated for its intrinsic artistic features. The moral evaluation limits the interpretation of the audience, and since the readers are not passive, people interpret art through their own frameworks. So it varies hugely by the context, the education, and the norms. Reconducting this to our team's line, we think that literature must be evaluated independently from the personal beliefs and actions of this author, because the aesthetic value becomes to the text itself. And we think of literature as an independent artistic object whose primary value is the aesthetic experience that it gives to the readers. In fact, it exists independently from the personal beliefs of its author. So the purpose of art and literature is the aesthetic pleasure, that is the emotional impact and the intellectual engagement. So art exists for its own beauty and not to reinforce morality. As we can express in our third argument, that is sorry, 1 minute. Our third argument is about the engagement of, okay. Okay, sorry. The timeless beauty that is transcending context. So what we mean is that the aesthetic value of literature is transcendent of the historical, moral, and political context of its author. So beauty is timeless, and it exists independently of social norms and morality. So art is historically situated, but it is conceptually autonomous. So every work of literature is born in a specific time, and it reflects social norms. So this specific time includes politics and moral attitudes. However, the aesthetic qualities such as language, structure, the imagery, the narrative, those are universal features. So these properties remain impactful. And they remain universal beyond its author and its reception that is constructed by the readers, and literature lives beyond its author. So the readers come from different generations. So the moral judgment of the author is temporary, and the author is temporary bound. So the evaluation of art that is based on morality erases the universality and the beauty, which remains valid regardless of historical and ethical shifts.
POI.
Yes, please.
So you're saying that art should be and literature should be anonymous, and also that beauty, autonomous and beauty is timeless. But can beauty actually be timeless if it's shaped, as you said, by its time and its context?
Yes, because we as the proposition are taking the values that the readers can assume from reading these literary artworks. So what we are referring to is art for art's sake, and the the art and literature that it's eternal. It remains through time, because even if the author is bound to its time and to the politics of its time, this influences the text, but it should not be taken in consideration, because the readers that, as we said, has critical thinking, can have their own idea of this literary work of art. So, for example, Wilde was a central figure, and he expressed art for art's sake. That is what we are evaluating through this debate. And with that, I end my speech. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Arianna. 8 minutes and 8 seconds. Now I give the word to Sophie Bisso, the second speaker of opposition team, right? Okay.
My speech will begin in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sophie Bisso, and I am the second speaker of the opposition team. Having said this, I will start by refuting what has been said by the previous speakers, and then I will move on to presenting the last two arguments of our team. So, Speaker 1 stated that the artist has the right to believe whatever they like. So, yes, artists can believe whatever they want up until, of course, a certain extent, but that doesn't mean that harmful ideas should be allowed and especially rewarded in certain cases just because they're written well. Now tell me, why should harmful ideas be rewarded just because of the way they are written? Criticism for this reason exists to assess the impact a work could have, and not to give every belief an automatic approval. Another thing that Speaker 1 said was that authors were afraid of being censored for their ideals. The proposition stated more times that this, but their own model ends up doing something very similar. In fact, if you tell critics to ignore an author's ideal entirely, that itself is a form of censorship. In fact, it erases the real meaning behind the work, and it just considers the beauty of the text. But the purpose of writing, and this is exactly why it is unfair to the authors, is to communicate ideas, experiences. And if you eliminate that, then these authors are just producing elegant sentences, which, as Sophie Vargas, Speaker 1 of my team, said before, this is just producing elegant sentences, and anyone can do that. Speaker 2 then stated that we should evaluate prose because that is what determines how good a novel is, which is basically what the debate discusses. But reducing a novel to its prose ignores how literature actually works, because, as I said before, context is essential. The ideas a text promotes, the world it builds, the experiences of the author, all part of the text. A novel isn't just random sentences on a page, but there's a lot of meaning behind that. And judging only the prose gives you only half of the picture. Lastly, the second speaker also said that artistic merit is autonomous, and even if the author is socially wrong, he should be praised. But artistic merit is never completely separated from the author's ideas. What an author believes shapes a lot the story they tell. It influences a lot the characters they center and what they normalize. So praising a work while ignoring the actual meaning and what the author actually wanted to say is pretending that literature has no impact at all. I will now move on to the second argument, which is you can't separate aesthetic from meaning. So if one judges only on aesthetic merit, we will end up rewarding possibly harmful ideas as long as they are expressed in elegant language. A book can be beautifully written and yet still promote things like racism or misogyny or other damaging worldviews. And when we ignore that, we create a system where the prose matters more than the impact of the message. Cultural organizations like PNN, like the Fact Book states, show that aesthetic standards were historically defined by dominant groups. That meant that certain voices of the undominant groups were dismissed, not because they lacked talent, but because their style did not match what these groups considered to be proper literature. A clear example of this could be, you surely probably heard of it, Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. This novel today is widely read, but when it was published in 1937, many critics rejected it because it did not fit the refined standards set by white male literary circles. And this, which was indeed the dominant group. And this is exactly the problem with the propositions model. If we pretend that aesthetic merit is neutral, then we will end up reinforcing the same power structures that have always dominated literature. Minority voices will get pushed aside simply because they don't fit a narrow idea of what counts as beautiful, while authors with harmful worldviews are rewarded as long as they phrase those views elegantly. So no, the proposition model does not create fairness, but it just becomes a form of justification. I will now move on to the third argument, which is readers and institutions have ethical responsibilities. Literature shapes how people think, so judging it is never neutral. What schools choose to teach, what publishers promote, all play a great role. And this is where the propositions model becomes unrealistic. They claim that we can just judge beauty, but in real institutions, that simply isn't how literature works. For years, schools taught, for example, The Taming of the Shrew, It's a novel by Shakespeare. You probably know it, and they treated it like a harmless comedy, but it actually its entire plot revolves around humiliating and taming a woman. So let me put this question clearly: do you really believe, proposition team, that it's correct to present a text like that to students and pretend the only thing that matters is the aesthetic part of the text? We honestly don't, because doing that ignores the message students actually internalize. In fact, it only promotes harmful behavior.
Point.
Yes?
So consider books like Cameron. Should we also avoid teaching them to students because of its erotic themes?
Well, it depends to which extent. Of course, what we believe is that we should stop teaching books at schools which promote extremely bad views, but not exactly stop teaching them, but especially stop promoting them and stop actually evaluating them and believe that they are extremely good novels just because of how they are written. We should also consider the context when doing this. Now, as I was saying, imagine living in a world where a harmful idea becomes acceptable as long as it is phrased beautifully. That isn't a fair system. It's irresponsible. And honestly, imagine the negative impact that it could have on the authors themselves. The whole purpose of writing is to express something, a belief, and reducing the works to pure style strips away the very reason literature exists. To conclude, if literature has power and the proposition agrees that it does, then engaging with it ethically isn't optional. It's part of taking it seriously. Thank you.
Okay, I have 6 minutes 35.
I am sorry, but I counted it on mine and it was 8 minutes.
Okay, maybe there was a problem with I think your speech was of good length, so it's probably a problem with mine. So please,
Okay.
everybody feel free.
I can tell you exactly. It was 7 minutes 58.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Please feel free, everybody, to correct me because I've had a problem with my cell phone. So thank you very much, Sarah. Are my colleagues ready? Okay, so now to Anita, the third speaker of the proposition team. Wherever you're ready, Anita.
I'm ready. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1, go. Good evening, everyone. I'm the third speaker of today's debate for the proposition. And with my speech, I will crystallize this debate and refute everything that the opposition has said so far. So, the opposition team has spoken about the promotion of harmful voices through literary texts, and how both of the speakers spoke about justifying harmful ideas. Although this is not what we have been talking about, this is not what we mentioned in the debate, it's a misunderstanding of the concepts. We are never justifying ideas when we appreciate the text, the beauty, the artistry of literature. We can separate the considerations that we have of morality while still appreciating literature beauty. This saying that we will justify these ideas just denies that we have critical thinking as readers. but readers can either approve or disapprove of these harmful ideas. The other team has also spoken about how kids get influenced by studying these texts that have controversial ideas, but at the same time, we have teachers who can contextualize the authors and give a direction of the works so that kids are not as influenced and can study the literature. Also, thank you.
So you are saying we are accusing you of promoting harmful text. Then how can you explain why? Can you please explain why your model ignores the harmful ideas inside those texts?
I've already explained that we do not ignore the harmful ideas, but at the same time, we don't make a compromise. We don't want to disregard texts that have been important for the development of culture, innovation of literature, evolution, just because at the time they had controversial or still controversial views. By the way, morality, politics, they change over time. So if we follow your model, we might disregard texts that at the time were controversial, but now we just read and we go on. We are not ignoring the views. We just want to appreciate the text instead of appreciating the author. So this censorship is very dangerous, like the previous speakers of my team have talked about, because censorship deletes the improvement of society, debate, multiple views. In the past, the Roman Inquisition censored important books that we study today, and they were important for development of literature, like the Cameron, poems by Tasso. It would be absurd to disregard works like the Cameron just because they had moral, controversial views. Also, many authors would limit their creativity and freedom to avoid being considered morally wrong, and this is wrong because it's a human right for people to express themselves freely, freedom of speech. So the opposition team keeps attacking critical thinking, but we believe that readers don't get brainwashed. Readers can just appreciate the power of interpretation, beauty, while recognizing that the views are, shouldn't be taken in consideration. Art is a discipline that should stay independent. It's not politics, it's not morality, it's art, and it should be judged by elements like languages, imagery, style, and structure. I would also like to bring up another example. Roland Barthes is an intellectual that spoke about how a work should be separated from author's beliefs, because literature is the meaning of literature is created through the reader's multiple interpretations, the interactions between the reader and the text. It's a reduction to judge literature based on other elements like politics and morality. When we consider those and disregard the beauty of art, we reduce the multiple ideas that can are born when we appreciate a text. So also the speaker previously said, can beauty be timeless? Beauty can't be timeless, they said, because it's shaped by context, but actually we are not saying that. It's moral views that aren't timeless and are shaped by context, but imagery, symbolism, style, metrics, and the feelings conveyed, they provide eternal value and the aesthetic merit. They are timeless, and that is the beauty of art, the importance of art, and so the criteria that we have defended, the proposition team, are objectivity again, freedom, and development of culture, while the other team is attacking development of culture. They're saying we shouldn't be allowed to read certain books because they are considered morally wrong. But at the same time, it's attacking our freedom, it's attacking our culture, because we can decide for ourselves to appreciate the text without approving the morality of the creators. The impacts of censoring these books are that authors have to compromise the loss of authenticity in authors and in works. And we would just have an alt stop in evolution, in experimentation in literature, and authors may avoid speaking about controversial themes, being honest. Like, for example, the first speaker previously said Descartes did this. It's unfair because, again, it's a natural thing to have freedom to express ourselves, to think what we want to think. And the readers have the job and the opportunity, the ability to not approve of the morality while still appreciating the text. That's what we have done all the time. We study the Decameron because of many elements, like, for example, Boccaccio's ability to provide a very interesting and accurate depiction of the Black Death in Europe. If we just censored it because it was sexual, we wouldn't know a lot about that historical event. And also the evolution of prose and the structure of the novels. So with this, I conclude my speech. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, 8 minutes, 5 seconds. And now to Sara, the third speaker of the opposition team, right? Whenever my colleagues are ready, please give me a sign. Okay, Sara, whenever you want.
My speech will begin in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sara Gorrino, and I'm third speaker for the against team. So I'm against the previously introduced and analyzed motion. As the third speaker of the opposition team, my role is both to refute what has been said by the proposition and reinforce the key points brought up forward by my teammates. I would now like to begin by refuting what has been said by the proposition, starting from first speaker. So the first claim is that when they defined the motion, they said that literature is just the art of writing poetry, novels, etc. But we actually believe that literature is more than just that, than just style and words. Your view of literature is what you said. We instead believe that literature carries ideas, messages, beliefs, contexts, which shape how readers understand and react to it, just thanks to the author. Another claim that you brought up as first speaker is that authors spend years making a perfect masterpiece, so why should we judge them by their beliefs? And even if authors work really hard, the ideas in their work affect people and society, so we cannot ignore what the figure of the author is in our society and what they stand for in our society. Moreover, you believe that authors have a human right to their beliefs, so this shouldn't affect their work. And yes, it's correct that authors have human rights to their belief, but having a right doesn't make their work harmless and doesn't change what they're saying as authors. So literature spreads ideas, and we never said that we should stop teaching something because it could be harmful, but we say that harmful beliefs can have real-world consequences, that not considering authors' considerations, contexts, and ideas, you are ignoring this big problem. Moreover, you claim that literature should be universal and stable. However, you also claim that it changes over time. Because literature changes with history going on and cultures changing, mixing up, judging only on style actually ignores the social moral context that gives the work its meaning, the meaning we give it and the author gives to it. Moreover, saying that aesthetic values belongs to the writing itself, not to what people and authors think, we believe that instead, well, of course, style and beauty are super important.
Point.
Accepted?
So, what's your idea about how to judge a book?
So, in the motion, we do not say that we are not allowed to judge a book by basing also on the style it's written, but it includes the term solely, meaning that we believe that style is very important. The way a book is written is very important, and we do not claim it's contrary. But we also believe that considering a book's context and author, it's crucial to analyze and judge a book and go into depth into that, and also make the you're saying that the reader is opinion is very important, but the reader's opinion is based on the author's ideas and context. So that's why we think that it's very important. And also you said that literature is an autonomous art, so judging only by aesthetics makes it independent. And this is one of your biggest claims in this debate. But we instead say, like, I believe that no art exists in isolation. Readers always interpret art through ideas, values, society. So separating aesthetics from content is really impossible. So you claim something that cannot actually be done and has never been done. Passing on to the second speaker's refutations, you said that aesthetic criteria must be both universal and separated from politics and protect the artistic freedom. But true freedom actually does not exist in a society that has or includes also harmful ideas in a work that can give artists free rein to promote damaging beliefs under the guise of art, so justifying everything, saying that it's art. So that's what we believe you're doing, saying justifying something because it's art, and we need to consider the style it's written. And moreover,
Yeah.
accept it.
Okay, so you're saying that politics and identity shape a work, but does that mean that a novel's craft, language, or narrative structure are determined by the author's moral choices?
Well, of course, all the entire context actually shapes art and literature, and we believe that stylistic features and the way a book or a novel is written, or a poem, also shapes its artistic freedom, and we need to protect it. But what we are arguing actually is that ignoring the ideas that are actually harmful in a work under the guise of art, under that guise, is not actually correct. So that's not what we're saying. Moreover, what you claimed is that judging literature should be all about readers' education. So we believe that this point is not correct, but apart from that, it's unfair, because literature teaches moral and social lessons. So reducing these moral and social lessons only to aesthetic education ignores its wider impact and its responsibility. And also, not everybody has the same level of education, not everybody has the same possibilities, so that also brings up to a level of injustice. You also claim that literature lives beyond its author, as Speaker 2 and 3 said. But a work may outlive its author, but the author's ideas and content remain part of it. So ignoring them can distort the meaning and effects of a literary work. To conclude, you said that we promoted. It's time's over for POIs. And well, to conclude my speech, having addressed the main claims of the proposition, I would like to conclude the speech. So our first speaker showed that ignoring the author's views allows harmful ideas to be rewarded simply because they are all well written. And second speaker, Sophie Bisso, demonstrated that literature is inseparable from meaning and context. So for these reasons, this House must firmly reject the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. 8 minutes, 20 seconds. Thank you very much. So it's time for concluding. We have concluded the first constructive part of this debate, and it's time now for the reply speeches. We start with the opposition team as usual. So who is doing? Sarah? No.
Sophie.
Sophie, sorry, Sophie.
No.
Okay. Whenever you're ready for your reply.
Okay. My speech will begin in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. I've returned to speak in order to conclude my thesis and the debate we have engaged in today. It has been a very constructive discussion, and I would also like to thank the proposition team and all of you for your attention. Okay, this debate has revolved around 3 main points of clash. The first point of clash concerns what actually makes a novel valuable. The proposition argued a series of times that only prose matters. We showed through valuable justification that this is not enough. Context and meaning are part of a book's quality because beautiful writing can still promote harmful ideas, and judging style alone gives an incomplete picture of the novel. On this point, our position is clearer and more realistic. The second point of clash concerns whether literature can be separated from the author's ideals. They claim that artistic merit is autonomous, but we explain that it isn't. An author's ideas influence the story, the characters, and the values the text presents. Ignoring this does not make literature neutral, it just hides the forces shaping it. We have sought to show this and prove our point during the debate. The third point concerns ideals and censorships. They said that a series of times that authors feared being censored because of our system. But we argued that ignoring ideals is itself a form of censorship because it erases the meaning behind what the author is trying to express. If I just consider the prose, I do not consider context, and yet then so the beliefs of the author. And real artistic freedom requires acknowledging ideas and not pretending that they don't exist. These 3 controversies show 2 very different ways of approaching literature, and we chose to depict this by showing 2 worlds. In the first world, the world of the proposition team, we judge books entirely on style, prose, and the way they are written. Harmful ideas will pass unnoticed because we only consider the prose, and the author's message is entirely ignored because we do not consider context, and so then criticism becomes superficial, and so the real meaning of the book does not really pass. In the second world, our world, we evaluate meaning and prose. We take literature seriously. We recognize the impact it has, also in some cases harmful, and we respect the intention behind the text. So we do not just consider prose, but we also consider the real context behind the world, and so then where actually the actual message lies. We, as a team, clearly prefer the second world. So a world without where we take literature seriously, we recognize the impact it has, and also the intention behind the text. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sophie. 3 minutes, 51 seconds. And now for the final speech, the reply of the proposition team. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. So over the course of this debate, both teams have presented their arguments, and in this reply speech, I will focus on the key clashes and explain why the proposition case ultimately stands stronger. So the opposition claimed that you cannot separate the author from the art. So imagine the two words. In the first word, the prose word, literature is judged on its intrinsic beauty, craft, and also imagination. So in our world, a novel moves, inspires, and challenges, regardless of the author's personal morality. Imagine opening a book in our world. Every page breathes, every word and symbol speaks, and the reader is free to explore, question, and be moved. This is a world where art lives and imagination thrives, and readers are trusted to think critically for themselves. In fact, the picture of Dorian Gray, for example, still dazzles us centuries later, not because society approved him, not because his lifestyle was moral, but because the art itself was alive. So this is the world we defend, a world where art truly thrives. So in the second word, the opposition's word, every work is weighted against the author's lives, beliefs, or politics. So here, genius can be condemned and timeless beauty can be erased. Identity, politics, and personal experience might inspire the work, but the recognition of these factors is the understanding. The aesthetic value remains independent of the author. In the opposition word, imagine opening the same book and seeing it covered in a gray veil, where every sentence is fudged and every chapter is censored, every thought is measured against the author's morality. So the beauty is dimmed before the reader even reaches the second page. In this world, readers cannot explore ideas freely or discover hidden meanings on their own. So art becomes a moral report, not a living experience. What OP failed to prove is that they never explained how we should judge art. They collapsed the clash between the text and the author, and this removes the reader interpretation and turns literature into a moral biography, which is not literary criticism. And they overstated harm, since they kept talking about dangerous authors, but harm comes from content, not identity. So they never justified why biography should override the textual analysis. So we firmly believe that the proposition word where art truly thrives should be defended, since we are defending intellectual integrity, artistic freedom, and cultural preservation. The moral norms constantly change, and their model erases huge parts of literary history. Our model keeps the canon open while still allowing ethical discussion separately. So please judge books as books and people as people. When you mix the two, you lose the art to ideology. And that's why the opposition wins. Thank you. With that, I end my speech.
Arianna, 3 minutes, 39 seconds. Thank you, both teams, for a very, very good debate. Please applaud yourselves. You've been very, very good, both of you. So let me now stop the registration, the recording of the debate. We judges will go in our judge chat room, and we'll be back in a few seconds. Well, few minutes, let's say.
Complimenti ragazzi, comunque, a parte la pronuncia perfetta, ma anche per come avete esposto.
Anche voi.